Hey guys, how's it going? Josh here. So this video is about kind of my suggestions, yeah, on fixing X-Men Apocalypse. Some things that I would have done differently, and I want to hear you guys' thoughts too. So comment below with your guys' thoughts on what I said and just in general. And yeah, let's get right into it. So the image on screen won't change. It might change a little bit, but the reason why I won't show any official images from the movie is because with our history with Fox, they'll copyright and strike anything they possibly can. So I really want to play it safe here. So moving on from that, however, let's get right into the topic at hand. So first and foremost, let's start with Apocalypse. I really didn't mind Apocalypse necessarily, like his power levels, his power sets in general. I really thought they nailed that down pretty well. And I didn't mind at first. I really didn't mind the whole him interacting with the TV thing. Only reason I say that is because when you really think about it, it makes a lot of sense he'd be able to do that considering he can transfer consciences. And if you want to look at that from like a scientific standpoint, you can look at it as like electrical signals, things like that. So him being able to interface with TVs and really learn from that is really just more of an extension of that ability more than anything else. So I really didn't mind that too much. However, I would definitely change the four horsemen amongst anything else. Reason being because it really didn't vibe well. I mean, they tried introducing way too many characters in this film, and I think that was a huge flaw because a lot of people complain about the fact that they didn't connect with Psylocke at all. They didn't really connect with Storm. They didn't really connect. I mean, the only characters they really connected with were Magneto, Professor X, and that's really all people said they really felt for emotionally, so to speak. Maybe a little bit for, like Jean and young Cyclops, but besides that, no one really cared about any other characters. I mean, besides Beast and I guess Mystique, but even those characters people didn't care much for, and I guess McTaggart too. And the reason why is because those characters have a history with us, and seeing them go through this actually matters. However, these newer characters, it's harder to really establish like that. So I would have definitely not had Nightcrawler in this movie. I would have not gone there because that has way too many questions involved. I mean, you have to go into the fact that is he Mystique's son? Is he Azazel's son? How does that even work? I mean, you got to go into that stuff. So I just think that character has way too many questions involved in his introduction. They should have just skipped it to be frank basically with that. Even though I did enjoy the actor's performance for Nightcrawler, I thought he did a great job, a lot better than I thought he would honestly, and expected him to do. So I do give him props for that. Mystique, I will have given a much lesser role. I think a lot of that's due to the fact that Jennifer Lawrence is a bigger star now than she was before. But even though, with that being said, they still should have given her a smaller role, I think, especially because Jennifer Lawrence kind of phoned it in compared to her previous performances. And I just really think she's also kind of getting really sick of the role too, because she complains about the makeup process a lot. Which, I mean, I could understand you complaining about that, but then again, you did sign on for the role. No one made you take the role, so that really should be just expected at this point. Beast, I definitely would have had stay, but here's where it gets a little different here. So my four horsemen, it would have been Jean Grey. I'm fine with Storm, and you know what? I'm fine with Psylocke, and I'm fine with Archangel. However, Archangel can be switched out, and I would have switched Archangel out, I guess, with Jean Grey. Reason why I say that is because a big part of the whole Archangel aspect of Angel when he goes through that is just how, sad it is. And just how that downfall of the character, like that fallen angel aspect. And we don't get that because, let's be honest, we don't care about Angel in this movie. So we don't have that connection. So when he kind of falls from grace, so to speak, and becomes Archangel, we don't care at all. So that really loses a lot of its emotional impact that it originally had in the comics. So I really I know they did it because he's probably the most well known of the Apocalypse from the comics, the Horsemen of Apocalypse from the comics. So I understand they probably did it because of that. But honestly, it's one of those scenarios, in my opinion, where if you can't do it right, don't do it at all. Angel should have been one of the original X-Men to begin with. And if he was, then this would have been a great thing because you could really have his downfall as a character. And they could have done something where maybe in Days of Future Past, he gets hurt and he can't really use his wings. And then Apocalypse comes to him in this movie. And this is kind of his fall from grace, so to speak. Like between Days of Future Past and now, we can kind of see he's kind of gone, opposite, he's kind of gone on a downward spiral, and then Apocalypse really sets it off by turning him into Archangel. That would have had a lot more emotional impact. That would have been better and have been a more accurate Archangel than what we got. Because, I mean, let's be honest, he wasn't even, like he was in the comics. X-Men 3 got Angel's character a lot better, which is kind of sad. But moving on from that, yeah, I would have had Jean Grey be the character. Also, Jean Grey could have taken Magneto's place as this uber powerful mutant that, eventually betrays Apocalypse. And also would have given the X-Men some investment in Four Horsemen's Apocalypse, or the Horsemen of Apocalypse. The reason why I say that is because a big part of Magneto being a Horseman is that really brought the X-Men into the fold. Because let's be honest, when Storm was a Horseman at the time, no one really cared. Psylocke, no one really cared. Archangel, no one really cared. But Magneto, the X-Men cared because of the connection with Magneto. So I really feel like having Jean Grey take that role would have been better, because it's kind of just overdone at this point. We get Magneto becomes evil, then he ends up becoming good at the end. I mean, it's just been overdone so many times now at this point. They need to do it again, but with someone else. And this also would have been a great chance to have the Phoenix powers unlocked more organically in the story. In X-Men Apocalypse, it felt more of like a Deus Ex Machina at the end, having the whole Phoenix Force just come out of nowhere. In this instance, we already know Apocalypse enhances people's powers and kind of brings it up to their full potential, so to speak. That would have been a good reason to have the Phoenix powers kind of come now and more prominently now versus down the line like 10 years, 20 years later, like they did in the Bryan Singer original timeline films, because this is obviously a revised timeline now. So I feel like that just would have been better. And then if they want to do a Dark Phoenix story again, they can use Apocalypse enhancing Jean's powers as a conduit and as a reason for why the Phoenix Force is coming now when she's younger versus later, like it did in the original, X-Men films. So I just felt like that would have been better, and it would have been, you could have played a lot more with, the father-daughter relationship of Professor X and Jean Grey versus the kind of brotherly relationship of Magneto and Professor X like they do all the time. Also, it would have been nice to see Magneto just on the side of Professor X from the get-go versus him like having to be against him and then, be changed to his side. Because like I said before, it's just been really overplayed. And I'm sick of seeing it. I'm sure a lot of other people are sick of seeing it too. So Jean Grey, Psylocke, like I said before, I didn't really mind her. She kind of did her role, so to speak. I mean, she didn't have really much to do besides being an enforcer. And even before she was a Horseman, she was an enforcer anyways. So I didn't really mind it that much. For Storm, I didn't mind it that much, but she could have been given more dialogue, really. But I thought this was a good introduction for the character. All things considered, honestly, I thought it was interesting. She's a very powerful character, so I thought that having Apocalypse be responsible for some sort of some part of that, I think that's a smart move considering her power set. This does give some explanation for it. So yeah, my Horsemen so far I've gone over is, like I said before, I would do Archangel if they had introduced Angel earlier. So in that kind of downfall, kind of like sad twist of fate, character we care about kind of going to the evil side, instead of Archangel or Magneto taking that role, I would have had Jean Grey take that role. And then I would have had that be an organic way of really introducing the Phoenix Force and kind of those powers creeping up earlier than they did in the original Bryan Singer films, as I explained, from a few minutes ago. So Jean Grey, Psylocke, Storm, and really the fourth Horseman, I don't really care. It would have been cool if they used a character that's already been a Horseman, and because of that, I say I would use Wolverine. Now, the reason why is not because Wolverine needs to be in every X-Men film. It's because in this different timeline, it would have been cool to see maybe the adamantium bonded to Wolverine's skeleton by Apocalypse. Now, the reason I say that is because they could do the Weapon X facility again, and also because Apocalypse is looking for the strongest mutants and the best Horsemen. There really isn't anyone better to fit that kind of role than Wolverine. If you're really being honest, I mean, the dude's basically unkillable. I'm sure Apocalypse would love that. So I would have definitely had something happen where Apocalypse is going through stuff like files, government files, things like that, when he's connected with everybody, finds out about Weapon X, obviously about Wolverine in the process, goes to the Weapon X facility, releases Wolverine. I would have had this be right before kind of the experiment, so Wolverine has all the mental conditioning from Weapon X still. Just Apocalypse does a procedure to him instead of Weapon X doing it. I know a few fans might be upset about that, but I feel like that gave it a fresh kind of spin instead of them kind of rehashing that same thing over and over again. Since just like Magneto, it's happened so many times now. At this point, they should just do like a slight spin on it, so we as the audience just don't get tired of seeing the same thing done over and over again. Especially if they're just going to show it to us over and over again. So I feel like not Magneto, sorry, Wolverine would have been a good fourth Horseman. That would explain, him getting the adamantium again. Also, it would just be a nice, interesting thing to do with the character. Nice, interesting kind of thing to take the character wise versus just, like I said before, being the same old horse over and over again. So those are the 4 Horsemen I would do. Like I said before, I was pretty fine with Apocalypse, but like I said before, also, they need to introduce less characters. Jubilee, I would have taken her out, especially because she did basically jack shit, let's be honest. I would have taken her out. Young Cyclops, I'm cool with. Nightcrawler, like I said before, take him out too. I was cool. Yeah, like I said, Young Cyclops taken out. Havoc, I would have introduced, but better. They seem to have forgotten that Havoc was like a war vet. They seem to forget his age in general also. He was much younger looking than he really probably should have been. So you really could have just replaced Havoc with Beast in that role, like in the role he actually like participated in, when he went with Xavier to the CIA place, all that stuff. Could have easily been Beast, to be honest with you. To be honest, in general, Havoc really didn't do much. It just kind of seemed like they just put his character in there. So I feel like the biggest way to kind of, so to speak, fix this movie would have been to slim it down. And in the process, make it more personal. Because what Days of Future Past really got right was it made it really personal. I mean, if they focused on a bunch of characters we didn't know, and they tried making us focus on characters we didn't know or even care about or have a history with, that movie wouldn't have worked. The reason why it did work is because it focused on Wolverine, Magneto, and Professor X, and a little bit on Mystique, but not as much. And because we care so much about the characters of Wolverine, Professor X, and Magneto, that movie really worked. Like it always gets me, that scene with Professor X when he's like, "I need you to hope again," to the younger Professor X. I mean, that always is a great scene. And honestly, Days of Future Past trailer is probably one of the best movie trailers I've ever seen. To be honest, it's such a great trailer. But yeah, that's what I would have done for X-Men Apocalypse. I know I really focused on the 4 Horsemen, but that's just one of the things that really bothered me. Plotline, I didn't really mind it that much. I feel like Apocalypse had a pretty clear, goal in mind. And honestly, I wasn't really mad. I mean, I liked what he did with the nukes. I liked how he kind of sent all the nukes up to kind of take him out of the equation. I did enjoy that because it would have been really cliche if he just kind of wanted to activate all the nukes to destroy each country. I mean, it's been done so many times. It's just, like I said before, don't do the same thing over and over again if we've already seen it over and over again. So comment below what your guys' thoughts, and I'll see you guys later.